Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's just after 2 p.m., and we're so thrilled you're joining us today for another Trump Tyranny Tracker. It's day 114. Time flies when you're having so much fun, right, Olga?
Oh yes, yes. Day 114, and like I tell you, it feels like what year 114.
Well, you work so hard at putting the Trump Tyranny Tracker together every day, and it's one of the most important resources online anywhere, really, which gives everyone a good sense of exactly all the authoritarian creep that's happening day by day by day. And, it was in full display, obviously, in Riyadh yesterday. And then we found out that Trump went to visit a Syrian president, or I think the Syrian president came to visit him. Um, you're a Syria expert amongst also being a Ukrainian expert. And I'm really interested in your take on it, because this is very unusual for a U.S. president to be meeting a sanctioned guy like this, who's got a history as, in various Al Qaeda type organizations. What's your take on this meeting?
Well, I'm not a Syria expert, but I did work with Syrian opposition for years because we worked together with Ukrainian civil society to put together evidence on war crimes that were committed by Russian mercenaries and soldiers in Syria. And then the same people, were in Ukraine. So we were putting evidence for eventually, if there's any accountability, to have them, prosecuted for the war crimes in Syria, because I can't begin to tell you how much Russia was involved. I mean, they entered shortly after the, Arab Spring. And even though officially they entered in 2015, there were Russians on the ground in 2012, and they were already assisting Assad in the mass graves, which we've all seen pictures of and whatnot.
Mm.
As far as this visit, I mean, it's extremely I mean, it's unprecedented, as everything else that Trump does. Um, you know, on one hand, it is good to give the Syrian, he is now the Syrian leader, and the Syrians do deserve to try to build a new country after, Assad and his father. I mean, these people were butchers, and what they've done over several decades, it's horrific. So the Syrians deserve to have a chance, to rebuild their country. Um, the issue here is that, if I were the US president and in any normal world, you would actually give it time, because I mean, the overthrow of Assad just happened, not too long ago. He fled to Russia. Um, and you want to see how this new government shapes up, how their judicial system is set up, and generally just how they run the government, and whether they will abide by the promises that they made, to change the direction and become more democratic. I do find it interesting though, because this is a further snub to Netanyahu, because Netanyahu has been bombing Syria, and and I mean, since day one of the overthrow. And it's interesting that Trump basically, is going, well, publicly going behind his back and welcoming this. The last thing I'll add on it is that interestingly enough, Russian news reported a few days ago, and I should have made this public, and it just kind of, I was too busy, and kind of
Mm.
put it into my head and moved on. But Russian media, opposition media, reported that the Syrian president had offered a mineral, rare earth mineral
Yeah.
deal, in order for the lifting of sanctions. And then yesterday, when I hear sanctions were lifted, I'm like, holy crap, this is exactly what this
Well,
is. Another country with this rare earth mineral
it
deal.
may not be a coincidence. It's interesting that
No,
Erdogan,
definitely not, because this was reported over the weekend,
yeah.
but I was on my mental hiatus, and I kind of took it in, kept it to see where it goes. And sure enough, it didn't take that long.
Well, you're sharing it now. And Erdogan he's mediating the talks tomorrow between Russia and Ukraine, and we just saw Zelensky is going. He says he'll be there, and he's not sure if Putin will be there, but he'll be there. It appears Trump may go too. Erdogan
I
appeared
don't
to.
think. I don't think Lavrov is going. I don't think anyone on the Russian side except low-level people are
You
going.
know, Trump keeps saying that he has high expectations for this actual
Yeah.
meeting, and we'll see what happens. But it's interesting that Erdogan actually put Syria as part of the deal-making process for Ukraine. He said to Trump, you know, if you drop sanctions against the Syrians so we can have a more stable region, we might be able to put a greater effort into helping mediate a solution between Ukraine and Russia. So who knows how this lands up? The next 24 hours going to be pivotal for everybody, it seems. Um,
Yeah, when it comes again, we had this discussion
yeah,
yesterday when it
you're not a
comes
believer.
to Russia and Ukraine, that's set aside. As far as Turkey and Syria, it would be natural because Turkey did host a lot of Syrian refugees. And Turkey also gave access, to Syrian opposition to enter Syrian opposition held areas over the past, decade. So as far as Turkey and Syria, that is understandable. Russia, Ukraine. I don't even think, first of all, Moscow is silent. I don't think Lavrov is going.
Hmm.
Um, I think on our end, Witkoff, the real estate guy, and Kellogg are going. Um, so we'll see who Russia sends. But I
Hmm.
don't, I mean, as of now, I haven't seen any signs Putin is
We
going.
shall see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Another story that came out of the big trip to the Middle East was involved the crypto empire that Trump is building, and you have something on the Trump tyranny tracker, which is so interesting. Two crypto scandals, in fact, converging around the Trump family. The first is
actually,
this
more.
more.
This
It's for
could be
seven.
too.
Yeah. There's a company called GD Culture, or GD Culture Group, which is a tech company with ties to China and zero revenue for the last year. Suddenly, they've been able to purchase up to, or announced plans to purchase $300 million worth of Trump's stablecoin. Now, the funds reportedly came from a mysterious stock sale to an anonymous British Virgin Islands entity. We don't know quite sure who that is, but it does seem pretty remarkable that they've got access to $300 million, and it's all tied to China, which is interesting because it's coming on the heels of the UAE deal, which is $2.1 billion from MGX to the World Liberty Financial, which is Trump's crypto company. The other big news from the crypto world is that the Financial Times has figured out that the Melania meme coin, which was launched just before Trump and Melania took office in January, they're reporting that there were just 24 wallets who were able to really gain the benefit of that Melania meme coin. They got $2.6 million worth before its public release, and ultimately netted $100 million. So what an incredible amount of money for these 24 wallets. We don't know who they are, but they obviously got early access to this
Yeah.
meme coin, which there's obviously a pump and dump kind of situation.
Absolutely. I mean, with the Melania coin, this just goes to more Trump corruption. And, as we keep saying, they're not even bothering to hide it. I mean, Trump and his family feel so emboldened and so unrestricted by law that they just are carrying out these schemes, very publicly. And they frankly don't care who sees or knows what's happening because they know no one is going to step in. It's not going to be the Republicans in Congress who step in, and it's not going to be the Department of Justice or the Securities and Exchange
Mm,
Commission. So, here we are. The Chinese company is extremely interesting because, even though it's Chinese linked, I mean, I am not an expert by any means on China, but they operate like Russia, and Russia linked means that it's a Russian front company.
mm,
So we could take the linked part out, and this is a Chinese front
yeah.
who had zero revenue, barely any employees, and suddenly finds this kind of money to invest in Trump. So what is China buying from Trump? And don't forget, this comes on the heels of not only is this tied to TikTok, but this comes on the heels of Trump lifting tariffs and calling it a big win, although China's the one who actually won and American businesses suffered. But this comes on the heels of this.
Mm,
So where was China buying off Trump personally to lift tariffs? Like what is happening there?
mm,
And I mean, again, this is why we need journalism,
mm.
independent journalism, to investigate these things because it's not going to happen through the government. And the only way to get these news out is, for media to to
Expose
investigate
it.
this.
It's really interesting. It really mirrors the UAE deal, the $2.1 billion that went to the World Liberty Financial, which is such an interesting deal. Chris Murphy on the Senate floor yesterday, and I have this on narrative.org if people want to go watch it, really detailed how that deal played out. And it's really, the money goes directly to Trump. So Trump basically gets $2.1 billion, which he can then invest. And in Murphy's estimate will earn him $85 million a year in revenue forever, for as long as this thing keeps going. And it seems to me that maybe the Chinese deal is similarly based. They buy 300, is it million or billion? I think it's just million. But, and then
Just a
ultimately,
million.
just million these days, what's a million for Donald Trump? But ultimately, the money will flow, I think, to Trump, directly or
Absolutely.
indirectly. And it's
This
just,
is directly going to
yeah.
Trump. And with the UAE deal, it's interesting because again, they invest what was it, 2.1
Mm,
billion, and they received by the State Department a contract for 1 point, I believe, 6 billion in
wow.
arms sales yesterday.
Interesting. Interesting.
So before yesterday, before Trump flew out. So you have, I mean, there's so much corruption going on. I mean, really, people need to, you know, and this is happening as Meals on Wheels is being cut. They're thinking to cut Medicare, Medicaid,
Mm.
SNAP, and all the safety net programs that we have. And this is what is happening here.
It's incredible. I mean, the guy's getting a luxury jet from Boeing for free while he's cutting the
That we
basics
have
of.
to pay for
Yes,
to
we have to pay.
repair.
I know it's
We have
crazy.
to pay for it because he's not going to just hop in the jet and fly around.
Yeah.
They have to strip the whole jet to look for bugs and any other kind of surveillance tools to and rebuild it. So what is the point? Why are we paying for him to get a flying Trump Tower?
And
you
we'll only have
know,
it for 2 years. I mean, it's not even like the United States can even use it. It's basically
no,
they're going to
no,
strip it
no.
and make sure it's safe, and then give it to him for his library. It's ridiculous. The other story that came out of the Trump turning tracker today, which really
Mm.
caught my eyes, this intelligence purge that is happening from a National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard. Can't you believe that? I can't believe that I'm even saying those words together.
I know.
But she's fired two leaders of the National Intelligence Council, Mike Collins and Maria Langen-Rykhoff, who oversaw the threats assessment. These are the two people apparently responsible for releasing that report last week that Venezuela gang that Trump has identified as an alien invasion gang were not, in fact, controlled by the Venezuelan government. So, because they put that out, it appears that they have been chopped and they no longer work at the intelligence community. This seems like ridiculous because there's truth in what they're reporting. Obviously, it seems like a very legitimate assessment and accurate, but Trump can't handle the truth.
And if you want to go back to when we discussed this intelligence report on Venezuela,
Mhm.
we actually said, "Oh, well, how long before the people
Right. You
involved
you
will
did say
get
that. You did
fired?"
say that. Well,
Well, we got our answer very
yeah,
quick. It didn't take, it took about a week.
yeah.
No, I mean, this is what is happening across all agencies. And frankly, this is extremely frightening because the bigger picture on this is that all federal workers are being surveilled. Anyone who speaks truth that does not align with Trump's agenda are being purged. Instead, they want loyalists. And literally, Trump is building the same system. I remember when Putin was coming to power. I remember how he, took out all of Yeltsin's people and replaced it with his. I mean, frankly, criminals. These people absolutely, it was
Mm,
not merit based, employment. It was criminals that he trusted who were yes men who would follow all his orders, regardless legal, not illegal, whether it's calling for assassinations, whether it's shailing people, stripping people of assets, whatever it was, they would fire. I mean, they would follow. And this is what Trump is doing here. He is assembling the same thing. And between the mass purges, the surveillance, and then here you have people who actually say, no, Maduro is not, controlling Tren de Aragua. And there's This is not an invasion, and this act should not be used because it's not a foreign government invading us. And 1 week later, they are fired. And
Hmm.
I mean, this is extremely dangerous because then, on top of it, like I said, you have the surveillance. So anyone who wants to follow whistleblower, protocols will get fired. And I mean, there were USAID people who had spoken, and they're also under investigation. Now, the Department of Justice and USAID is launching an investigation for them speaking to media
Hmm.
after they were fired for
Wow,
purging.
that is unbelievable. It really ties into this other story that you reported about Ed Martin, who
Oh,
last week was the the acting attorney general, acting attorney for the Washington area, but he's now got a new job as the Justice Department's weaponization working group chief. I guess that's what he's leading, and he's announced plans to publicly name and shame individuals the DOJ cannot prosecute. In other words, in the past, it's been a long-standing tradition where you just did not, if you didn't have a real
no.
charge against somebody, you wouldn't release information about what you were investigating. But that's no longer the case in the new Department of Justice, where it seems like they're going to be releasing derogatory information without charges for the first time. Now, Martin, as we know, is a Trump loyalist. He's also works for Russia Today and Sputnik and a bunch of other organizations along the way. He was, he's been appointed in this position as the Associate Deputy AG, overseeing investigations in Trump's past investigators. What a horrific move. I mean, this is just, we all expected this kind of retribution from this president, but this is unbelievable.
This is day
One,
114. We haven't seen anything yet. And I love someone put Department of Injustice because that is exactly what it is. Look, Ed Martin is the most toxic extremist. I mean, can you imagine how toxic he has to be that Republicans could not confirm him? I
yeah.
mean, they confirmed Hegseth, they confirmed Gabbard, a Russian agent, and they could not confirm him. So
Mm.
now he is in this department, and this is the same Ed Martin who went over 200 times on Russian state media to attack our agencies, to attack our government, to spread Russian disinformation operations. He also, was tied to the January 6th insurrectionists and defended them. He is tied to and praised the Nazi sympathizer, one who actually like put out a photo of himself with like Hitler's what is it,
Mustache.
mustache.
Yeah.
Um this is who now is involved in this idiotic weaponization. And the fact is that the Department of Justice, no matter who the president was, Republican, Democrat, has always been independent. And, they speak through indictments. That's how they speak. They, will process the case. When they're ready to prosecute, they indict the individuals. And usually you have, the indictments that list everything that happened, and occasionally they'll do a press conference, basically going over the indictment. Nothing more, nothing less. And now Trump has taken full control of this Department of Justice, and this is just the beginning because this sociopath was on Twitter when he was interim attorney general, threatening anyone who spoke bad about Elon Musk
Mm.
that I will prosecute you. What? We're in America.
Yeah.
We can say whatever we want about Elon Musk or anyone in this regime. And
That's
this is the person who now is in charge of this group. And I mean, we haven't seen anything yet because ultimately we will see Democratic leaders being walked off in handcuffs, this being televised, this being shared, just like in Russia, on social media accounts and state media that they are building and whatnot. And it's extremely dangerous. I mean, very, very
Yeah.
dangerous.
We've already seen it with Letitia James, who's facing an investigation right now,
Yes.
on fraud charges that are just, ridiculous, considering she's the person who got, the president convicted. Um, that is all the time.
And and just to add,
Yeah, yeah.
they're thinking about prosecuting Democrats who went to Newark, New Jersey, to the ICE
Right,
facility
right.
to do their job. This is
Mhm.
their job to, have oversight over facilities. And they are threatening to prosecute these Democrats
It's really
after
chilling.
arresting, the mayor.
Incredibly chilling stuff. We've seen the corruption around cryptocurrency today. We've seen the intelligence purges that are happening because he doesn't want the truth out there. We've now seen the DOJ being weaponized against his political opponents. The world is just shifting in a way that's so quick that we're just seeing this authoritarian government replacing what we have known as a democratic government for many, many years. And it's happening at a pace that's quite formidable. By the way, in about 40 minutes from now, I'll be hosting Hamish McKenzie, who's the Substack co-founder. And we're going to talk a lot about this, about the freedom of the press, about free speech, and about how Substack can be a vehicle for allowing independent journalists to get the real news out and to get the truth out. So I hope everyone joins me and Dean Blundell at 3 p.m. when Hamish McKenzie will be with us live on Substack. So look forward to that. But
Yes.
that is all the time we have for today. Olga, thank you so much. And we'll be back for day 115. Is there anything you want to share with anybody before we leave?
Just check out the tracker because the stories we cover is literally probably 4 or 5 stories out of 40 that I
Yeah.
document. If this was just and any one of these stories in the real world would be like something that would shift, it was something and would be a scandal.
Mm.
And we are being flooded by so many of these that.
That's why I love the tracker is you get a real summary of everything that's happening. And it's the only place that I think you can find the real summary of everything that's happening in the last, 24 hours in terms of authoritarian creep. And there is so much happening. The amount
And
is
human
overwhelming.
rights and
Yeah, yeah,
civil rights, and it's just
yeah,
non-ending, and that's it. We need to
yeah,
push back, and everybody please tune in 3 p.m. today because
yeah.
that is going to be fascinating,
Yeah, I
that
think it's going to be a good
conversation.
idea, a good conversation. The Trump Tyranny Tracker, by the way, someone just asked, is on Substack. You can get it at trumptyrannytracker.substack.com or look for Olga Lautman's name and you can get it from her on there. But everyone should subscribe if you haven't yet. So thank you very much for being here today. We'll see you again tomorrow on the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.